So my hair's a little windblown and I'm holding my coffee because literally just got back from our Azure Standard drop and it's a little chilly this morning here in Casper, Wyoming. It's actually not that cold temperature wise, but the wind was insane. So my ears are still thawing out, my hands are still thawing out, but here I am ready to share with you our November 2022 Azure Standard haul. And I'm really excited because we just finished getting our food storage room put together downstairs, and you'll want to check out the video on that released just before this one actually. So I will link that for you in the cards here on YouTube, but you will see some of these buckets actually in use down there. So we got that put together, which helped me to see what we actually still needed and some buckets that needed to be topped off and all of that sort of thing. Where in the past, since we just moved, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Amanda Willis. I empower families to wellness authentically through biblically rooted principles. And my husband and I recently, earlier this year, moved into our new home and into a new location here in Casper. And so we've been doing a lot of work on our house. I've been sharing a lot of that journey here on this channel, and we'll continue to share more as things are settling down and we're getting some more of our really big projects accomplished and forward progress moving. All right, without further ado, let's dive into this month's Azure order. So I'm gonna do the buckets first so that I can get the buckets out of the way here. We got 3 2-gallon buckets and corresponding Gamma Seal lids. These are fantastic. These buckets, food safe buckets, as well as the Gamma lids, are the best way to store things that you're purchasing in bulk. Now, I said the 2-gallon for your smaller items that you're not using as much of. 5-gallon, of course, are better for your items that you want to store more of. So for us, in our 5-gallon buckets, we have things like our wheat berries and that sort of thing. And then our 2-gallon buckets, we're storing more like our cane sugar because we don't really use that much cane sugar in our home. However, that said, it stores really, really well. And so we probably will eventually move to a 5-gallon bucket with that as well as a backup, just to have extra on hand, because we do like to live prepared. That is something that we have really been working towards. So we are not preppers in our home. We instead like to approach life as a productive Christian household and living prepared and not being reliant on anyone. So let's move on. We've got the buckets and the Gamma lids, fantastic for storing things like our cane sugar. So this is just organic cane sugar, evaporated cane juice. I got 5 pounds to start because we just ran out and it is holiday season. So we don't go through a ton of sugar. Like I said, we use cane sugar really only in some baking, very little bit of baking actually, and then in some baking and then in some canning and jams. But I typically try to sub out most of our sweeteners, and we are using things like raw honey. Although when you're baking, it doesn't have to be raw. I still, because it's gonna get cooked, you know, but at the same time, I still like knowing that to start, we have universal honey available. So we have some really good locally sourced honey here in Casper that we get actually every month added to, but that's not what's going into our breads and our baked goods and things like that. So this is just your basic Clover raw honey. It's 6 pounds and it's in a glass jar, which makes me really happy for multiple reasons. One, you don't have the plastic leaching into your food if it's getting hot and heated. 2, when you're down to the bottom of your honey, the best way to get the rest of that honey that's sticking to the edges out and not wasted is to put your container into hot water. Well, if it's a plastic container, then you're really increasing the likelihood that the plastic is leaching, right? If you're heating it up and using hot water. I also really like to just take whatever my container is and I will put like a squeeze of lemon juice and maybe some essential oils in there and shake it up and make a tea right inside of this jar. So with it being glass, that's a lot more, I feel more comfortable. There we go. I feel more comfortable doing that health-wise. And then you can wash the jar and reuse it for whatever you want. So then you're building your jar storage as well, which, I mean, it's hard to have too many glass jars for storage. Am I right? That's my opinion. Okay, continuing on. The other sweetener that we like to use a lot in place of sugar is maple syrup. And this is the grade A dark, used to be grade B until they changed the labeling on maple syrups, but it's your robust flavor. You're gonna have lots of minerals in here. The flavor is fantastic. So I ordered some extra of this because tomorrow is Thanksgiving when I am filming this. This will be going live after Thanksgiving, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving and I have already started a lot of our cooking. It's our first year hosting, and our recipes like our maple glazed sweet potatoes and my homemade cranberry sauce all call for maple syrup. So needed to restock some of that. Now you can get maple syrup in a lot bigger of a container. Usually as you're using it, the more you open it, the more it oxidizes. So though it can be cheaper, sometimes it's not. And as you're building, if you are newer to building food storage, you will notice like, yeah, it's a better deal sometimes to buy the really, really large containers. But how do you get there when you're first starting? Like you want to be building up all different stores of all different foods, not just one food. And so for us, what that looks like is some things are bigger, some things we start with smaller. And it's like, okay, so instead of buying just the 8-ounce thing of maple syrup, I'm going to buy the 32-ounce one this time. And then the next time around, I'll get another 32-ounce. And then I have a little bit of a backup so then I can order something else. So playing with your food storage and your orders a little bit based on what your family uses. If you don't use maple syrup, don't stock maple syrup. If you don't use maple syrup and you only use honey, then buy more honey. That's the number one rule when you're working through your food rotation in order to not have things that you're like, oh, shoot, that's all gonna go bad. Okay, speaking of things that you use, and in larger quantities, we've been buying smaller quantities, and I'm excited. Some of these we're being able to start upping our game. So this is 16 ounces, a whole pound of cinnamon, organic cinnamon. And it is very decently sourced. I know there are some companies that do like even more fresh and even more, there are some companies that have even higher standards when it comes to herbs. And honestly, I would love to grow a lot of our own and harvest our own. Some things like cinnamon aren't gonna be doable here, but Azure is a great like next level up on their spices, even though they're not like the premium top. They are really good and they're super clean. So we've got 16 ounces of cinnamon that hopefully should last us a while, though we are in cinnamon season. Then let's see, before we do that, let's do our other herbs, or spices. Herb, this one's an herb, and it is from Star West. So this is a little step up here. This is the organic fennel seed. And I had so much fennel for so long and then it didn't. And a lot of times we will order, like when we get our orders from Moink and things like that, we'll get just plain ground pork that's pasture raised and it's ground, and it's cheaper than getting the sausage a lot of times. You can get more of the pork than you can the sausage. And so we'll flavor our sausage ourselves, and nothing makes Italian sausage like fennel does. So excited to have some of that on hand. And cheesecloth. Did you know that Azure has items like cheesecloth? So I ordered some more, even though we have some really good, I don't think this is the, yeah, this is the thicker cheesecloth. This is not the cheesecloth I use to actually make cheese, because the weave is actually bigger on this than the cheesecloth that I use to make cheese with. But I will use this tomorrow for our turkey. I'm using the Martha Stewart white wine and melted butter turkey recipe. really excited, but one of her tips that she gives, I've heard really good things about this recipe. It was recommended to me by Carolyn from Homesteading Family, and she said it's the one they have used for all the years that they've been making Thanksgiving turkeys, and they always turn out super moist. One of the tricks is you soak the cheesecloth in and basically like lay the cheesecloth over the turkey, over the top, so you're getting moisture and the flavor locked in all around your turkey. So I wanted to go ahead and just get cheesecloth that I don't have to worry about washing out and reusing. I do that most of the time, but maybe once a year for a turkey, to have it and just be able to toss it so that Thanksgiving cleanup is just a tad bit easier. We're gonna go with that. All right, I need another sip of coffee. Let's keep moving on. Speaking of things in larger quantities, here is our 25 pounds of rolled oats. Now, rolled oats do not actually store super long. So you want to make sure you are ordering what you're going to be able to use in 6 months to a year, preferably closer to the 6-month period. Because once you roll the oats and they're split from the actual oat itself, the nutrients are released, it starts oxidizing, all of that kind of thing. So what I will actually do with these rolled oats that I'm also going to do with a couple other items here is I'm going to pop it in our chest freezer in the garage, and I'm going to leave it in there for a few days. I kind of wish it was just a little bit colder and I could just leave it in our garage. We are really close to that temperature, but not quite. I've actually asked for a thermometer for our garage for Christmas because I would love to know what the actual temperature is in there. That would be really helpful for me to know if things are freezing or if they're just cold and that kind of thing, because it just feels cold when you go in your garage, right? So when you are getting your whole grains and you're storing them for a long time, there are insect eggs. It's just a reality of your whole grain. And if you've never bought organic grains before, what you're going to need to do is one of two things. Either pop them in your refrigerator and fridge are the same thing, Amanda. Okay, pop them in your freezer for at least 3 days, and that will kill all of the insect eggs that are in there. Just freeze it for 3 days, you're totally fine. You can put it then in your 5-gallon bucket and store it that way. You do not want to store it in the bag if you can avoid it. It's not insect proof from insects getting in, nor insects getting out. Of course, if you're freezing it, that's helping with that. And then it's also not like rodent proof or going to last as long. You're sealing it from the oxygen and stuff. If you're putting it in your 5-gallon buckets, I don't do Mylar bags in ours only because we are not storing for 20 years. Like, that's not the reason that I'm putting things in there. Maybe we'll get to some longer food storage, but I'm really more of a fan of rotating through, knowing we're going to have what we need for a year or so. So that's what we've been working to build up to, is having like 6 months to a year supply of food on hand that we just constantly rotate through. It's also a really great hedge against the prices that are skyrocketing. So, okay, we've got those. Oh, the other thing you can do, sorry, I told you there were one of two things. The other thing you can do is if you do not have space in your freezer, this was us when we were living in our apartment, no space in the freezer in order to do that. So you can get food grade diatomaceous earth and sprinkle some of that in there. That'll take care of any of the insect eggs when they hatch. You won't have like insects eating all of your food. Okay, so moving right along, tomorrow is Thanksgiving and we are making mac and cheese. So I have some organic Colby cheese that is going with that. I got 3. I could have just ordered one of these, and actually 2 because it calls for 16 ounces. 2 of these. But again, we're slowly starting to build our stores in some areas. Cheese is one of those things where we now have a little bit more than what we've been using. Cheese, if you're anything like our family, and every family is going to be different, we eat a lot more cheese than I thought we did. So when I was like, I'm buying 10 pounds of cheese, this is going to last me so long. And we went through it before my next order because we just ate a lot of cheese that month. So I'm working on building a variety of cheeses that will help us then slow down like how fast we go through the cheddar. So anyway, Colby cheese for our mac and cheese, along with, oops, it's falling down. Along with some Monterey Jack that is also going in the mac and cheese. So that is here, and I did go ahead and buy 5 pounds of that. This is a little over, it's 5.33 pounds, but this is the Rumiano organic grass-fed, yummy, yummy Rumiano. So we've got the Monterey Jack, and then I did go ahead and get us another 5 pounds of the sharp cheddar. We still have about this much from here down on our last 5 pound one. And you can do a couple of different things with these. So you can cut it into smaller servings if you want, and I probably should start doing that, and it might slow us down a little bit more if I did that. But, and then freeze the rest of it because cheese freezes really, really well. Or you can do what we've been doing recently, which is just keeping the whole 5 pound thing in there and eating off of it as we go and just making sure it's wrapped up and not exposed to air. That works too, depending on how quickly you're working through your cheese or how much cheese you're using. Oh, our Thanksgiving chairs are here. Okay. Let me go ahead and hit pause because our Thanksgiving chairs are here. Okay, so I had to just pause the video. I saw a car pull into our driveway and I thought it was my friend who we are borrowing chairs from. We need 2 more dining room chairs for Thanksgiving tomorrow. And so I thought it was her dropping off the 2 dining room chairs. And instead, it was my friend Rhonda who actually runs our Azure drop. And I had told her that for our mac and cheese, she mentioned she uses smoked cheddar in her mac and cheese, but she told me that right, like I got the text and I was like, oh shoot, I wonder if I can switch my order and get smoked cheddar instead of the sharp cheddar. Because for Thanksgiving, I was like, ooh, that smokiness would go so well with the turkey. And but it was right at 5:02, the Azure cut off for us. And I was like, shoot, I don't have time to change it. So I was talking to her this morning at the drop and I told her, you know, that sounded really great. So she just brought me a really big chunk of the smoked cheddar for our mac and cheese. Friends, Casper people are so friendly. So I'm so thankful. So thankful. Oh, what a gift. Okay. So anyway, so the sharp cheddar will not be going into our mac and cheese. We will have the smoked cheddar. So excited. All right. Moving on with our order. We've got just one thing of marinara. I have actually not yet tried this natural value marinara. It looks like there's a decent amount of herbs in here, which makes me excited because a lot of times you get marinara and it's like real bland. I much prefer to make our own. However, our tomatoes this year did not grow fast enough. I was hoping to be able to make a whole bunch of marinara. I do have some tomatoes in the freezer, a mixture of our CSA ones and some from our garden that I'll probably be able to get 1 batch of spaghetti sauce convenience meal out of. But I was hopeful. We planted a whole bunch of tomato plants, but long story short, they took too long in our brand new garden to root down, I think. And this is actually sweetened with carrot juice. So instead of sugar, you have carrot juice in here. I'm excited to try it. I want to keep some marinara sauce on our shelf because that is a good, convenience meal. Just pop this in with a little bit of ground meat and some spaghetti noodles or whatever. You can make it go so many different ways, just plain marinara. I usually spice up whatever store-bought marinara. Like I'll add some chopped onion or some garlic or other veggies, like whatever we have on hand. I usually make it my own. It's not just like we dump the jar. But if we had to just dump a jar, we could just dump a jar. Then I grabbed us one thing of Mary's Gone crackers. They were not on sale. Otherwise I probably would have gotten more, but I really wanted some crackers for hors d'oeuvres tomorrow when our guests arrive for Thanksgiving. So I got the herbed ones because it's a special occasion. Usually I just get the plain, but I thought those would be yummy. Then we stocked up on some more raw walnuts. These are the baker's pieces. If you are not just eating whole walnuts, friends, buy the baker's pieces. They're cheaper. So you can get your organic walnuts at a little bit better deal if you get the baker's pieces, which just means they're not whole walnuts. They're like pieces of walnuts, which is totally fine if you're using them like in granola or baking or even snacking, I think. So that's what we do. I like to put them in baked oatmeals and that sort of thing. They work great just like that. And because we are making mac and cheese tomorrow, we need some elbow macaroni. My husband was cute. He goes, "Oh, is that all the macaroni you got was 2.5 pounds? I think that'd be a good thing for us to have on hand." So I will be buying more macaroni probably next month. I was like, yes, this was a huge order and within our food budget. So I will stock us up. This is more than what we need for the mac and cheese. So we'll have a little bit on hand and then I'll buy a little bit more and we'll start building up some elbow macaroni in our stores as well. So organic, semolina, right? I think this is semolina flour. Yeah, semolina macaroni, just your basic go-to. We don't do a ton of pastas that are like pre-made pastas. Ideally, I would like to make my own, but you know, baby steps, baby steps. Okay, hard white wheat. We normally would get a 25-pound bag of this, except I really just wanted to top off our buckets for right now. So I grabbed us 2 5-pound bags and that's gonna just top us off so that we have a full bucket. That's what that's doing. These are gonna go in the freezer along with the oats. And then last, but certainly not least, all-purpose flour. Now friends, you see me with my wheat berries and I love cooking with my wheat berries and fresh ground wheat. It's my favorite. However, for preparedness reasons, I wanted to have some flour. Whole wheat flour does not store well. You will probably see, if you watch my food storage room video, we have a little bit of whole wheat flour. I'm actually switching that bucket out for all-purpose because I'm working on just being better about having some fresh ground flour in the freezer that I have ground ahead of time so that we have a little bit, but that it's actually stored properly. Because when it is just in a 5-gallon bucket, flour you have from the time it is ground, if you're talking fresh, like whole grain flour, you really only have 3 days that it's good on the counter at room temperature. Then 3 weeks in the fridge and 3 months in the freezer once you grind it. And so when it's your whole wheat berries, those can store forever. If you've frozen them, you know, made sure all the insect eggs are gone and you store them properly, they'll store at least 20 years plus. If you store them, you know, proper temperature and out of sunlight and all that kind of stuff. But your all-purpose flour will, now because that's all sifted and everything, that's gonna store a little bit longer than like your whole wheat flour is. This actually has a shelf life. So I'm not 100% sure what it is. If anybody knows, would you comment below? I'm not sure if it's 5 years or what, but at least a year, no problem. So I have also started using some all-purpose flour a little bit more in, like, I'm making homemade bagels. For Thanksgiving stuffing, I did my sourdough bread with 100% all-purpose only because it's Thanksgiving. Once a year, stuffing, you want white bread stuffing, right? It's just better. I love my whole wheat stuff. I love my fresh ground stuff. But for Thanksgiving, there's like that old-fashioned reminiscent. It's just there. So we actually got 3 10-pound bags. So we have 30 pounds of all-purpose. I will tell you that when you're ordering with Azure Standard, here is one thing I have learned. Always, always, friends, look at the price per ounce or price per pound. You might have to do a little bit of math sometimes because sometimes when it's divided in, you get to see the different quantities. If you've never ordered them with them before, you'll notice, like, if you click organic all-purpose flour, it will give you all your different options. So it's like a 5-pound bag, a 10-pound bag, a 25-pound bag, a 50-pound bag. Bigger is not always cheaper. So you want to look at that. And sometimes it changes each month. And I don't know how they calculate it. I'm really not sure or why. But what I know is that sometimes it's cheaper to do 3 10-pound bags than it is to do a 25-pound bag. So make sure you look at that per ounce so that you really are getting the best deal and you're not thinking like, oh, I'm getting this great deal, and then find out that you really spent more than you needed to. So if you're curious in seeing how I'm storing most of the shelf stable stuff, obviously not the cheese, that's gonna get cubed up for our mac and cheese and our plates, our hors d'oeuvres cheese plate when people arrive and be ready for Thanksgiving today. And then the rest is going to get popped in the freezer, except for the sharp cheddar that we use on a regular basis. The shelf stable stuff though is gonna go down into our food storage room, and I have not yet recorded, though it will be going live before this one. That video, it's going to get recorded today after I get everything down there. So if you're interested in seeing that, be sure you check out the video that is linked in the cards and the comments below. Until next time, take care, friends. Cheers.